Hello, I'm Paul Beckwith, and I'm at the COP25 in Madrid, Spain. And basically, I'm in the metro station. The metro of Madrid is just wonderful. You can get everywhere very, very quickly. So this is the metro station stop for the COP. And what I want to do is show you some of the posters that have been displayed in the subway system and explain them to you. So hopefully my sound system is fine and you can hear everything clearly. So here we have a couple signs. The temperature of the planet increasing by 1 degree Celsius is not a change. Don't call it a change, call it a climate emergency. The report that actually just came out said that we're 1.1 degrees, risen 1.1 degrees since the 19th century. But of course, you know all about the baseline shift that I've talked about in previous videos, and the American Geophysical Union conference is going on right now in San Francisco, and there was just some noise yesterday about a paper by Michael Mann talking about that baseline shift. So finally, you know, some mainstream scientists are kicking in, but basically the 1.5 and 2 degrees Celsius degree targets that are in Paris and that everybody talks about, those are relative to a pre-industrial baseline of 1750. So if you want to compare the baseline of 1750 to the 19th century, you need to add at least 0.3 degrees. So this number, 1 degree, should actually be 1.4. Miami disappearing under the sea is not a change. Don't call it a change, call it a climate emergency. You know, when will the real estate people in Miami start to realize that? It'll be like almost like a fool's game. You know, buy as long as the price goes up, and then everybody will capitulate out and the properties will be worthless. 17.2 million people leaving their homes because of climate disasters is not a change. Don't call it a change, call it a climate emergency. Yeah, I mean, more and more people around the world are being affected. I'm not sure where that particular number came from, 17.2 million people, but it seems pretty reasonable. I guess it's a global number in the last year or something, or I don't know if it's a cumulative number. The Sahara is increasing its size by 10%. It's not a change. Okay, Sahara increasing its size by 10%. This is a really serious issue for Spain, where the conference is, because we've seen some of the massive heat waves in Europe recently, where the Sahara Desert, the hot, dry air from the Sahara Desert builds up in this enormous heat dome. And this enormous heat dome is kind of like a ridge of the jet stream. And as this ridge crosses over the Mediterranean, it heats up the Mediterranean, it picks up water vapor. So now it's a very hot air mass full of water vapor, and then it comes into Europe, creating the heat wave. This is a very serious issue. It's happening more and more often. And of course, Spain is most vulnerable to desertification from a Sahara moving across the Mediterranean. So people out here are actually starting to get a bit concerned with that. Okay, I'll continue on. See what else we can find on our explorations here. Okay. Here we go as I continue towards the venue. 143 million people being climate migrants by 2050 is not a change. This is going to happen more and more often. More and more parts of the planet are being disrupted by extreme weather events, by either droughts and heat waves, or by torrential rains, and they're having to move to other countries. So you really need to include the Syrian refugees. Drought destroyed their the farming areas for the rural people in Syria between 26 and 2010. Then those people, 1.5 million people, had to move to urban areas, no jobs, high unemployment, social unrest. Country kind of broke apart in civil war. Big players stepped in, completely devastating the country. Lots of refugees crossed the Mediterranean and also came to places all around the world, including Canada. So as climate change worsens, we're going to get more and more of these effects going on. Okay, so these two hallways here are completely covered. The walls are completely covered with climate slogans. So let's have a look at some of the other ones. 1 in 3 species are threatened by extinction. Okay, it doesn't give a time frame. You know, is that by next year? Is that in 20 years? Don't call it change, call it a climate emergency. There we go, perfect. Well, you've heard this before, call it a climate emergency. It's exactly what I've been saying for many, many years. But at least people are starting to think this way now. 40% of the Antarctica ice melting is not a change. People used to think that parts of the East Antarctic ice shelf were fairly stable, but it turns out that that's not the case. Sorry, I have a bad cough. Of course, the West Antarctic ice sheet, a lot of that ice is grounded on bedrock that is well below sea level. So what happens is as the sea warms up, as the oceans rise, then that undercuts that ice. That ice is melting from below, and we're shedding huge amounts of ice, land-based ice, into the oceans. And of course, that's contributing greatly to sea level rise. Miami's disappearing under the sea again. And let's see what else there is. More on the Sahara. Okay. Here we go. 75% of Spain is being at risk of desertification. And this is directly because of the expanding Sahara Desert, crossing the Mediterranean, coming up into Spain. Let's see what else we can find here. We seem to be getting a repeat. 143 million people being climate migrants. A friend of mine is on that list. He was flooded out by the Ottawa River in the spring, and that was the second time in 3 years. So he's actually building a bit higher, but I think his property is going to be continually subjected to flooding events most springs moving forward. Okay, so I think there's some sort of message to be derived from just walking up and down in this hallway. So hopefully some of the policymakers and government people actually read some of these signs and take them to heart. So I'll continue up to the COP just to give you an idea of what's going on at this conference. If you're vegan, if everybody became vegan, we could probably solve about a third of the climate crisis. Please don't eat me. I have those, thank you. So don't eat the bunny rabbit, right? Eat the food that the bunny rabbit eats. So we're at the front of the COP here. There's some security. And let's walk into the venue. So you can see the flags there of all the different countries, and you can see on the stands there, all of the different images that I was showing you that were in the subway station. Of course, there's Coke over there, but what can you do? And there's all kinds of different billboards here. So I'll have a look at some of them. Gorgeous day. So of course, this event was supposed to be happening in Chile. So they had lots of posters done up, and I guess they just sent them to Madrid instead, and they're using them here. You know, it was very fortunate that the government of Spain took the conference at such short notice rather than have the whole thing canceled. Although, you know, let's see what the negotiators come up with to see whether that ends up being a good thing or kind of a neutral thing. Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just lost my microphone, so the sound may have cut off there a bit. North of Chile. So I'm just giving you kind of a flavor here for what the COP is like as people enter, you know, each day. So this is the main site. They have a green zone over there where people go that do not have badges to participate in events at the COP, and then over here is the badged area. So I'll just kind of continue in and just give you an idea as to what we have. If I can find my badge. Okay, so let's walk over this way. Okay, I don't know if any of you have seen a blade from a wind turbine, but there's one up here to give you the scale of things. So we'll just head towards it, and these things are actually truly massive machines. Okay, so this is a wind turbine blade, and you can see the evolution of blades in these wind farms in Spain. So 16-meter length blade in 95, more than doubling by 2011, huge increase to 2014, and 74-meter is the length of one of these blades projected for 2020. So let's have a look at this guy. So made of aluminum, I guess, or some polycarbonate to be as light as possible. These things also have to be very flexible, of course. Let's get right to the end here.